This is Beyond a Reasonable Doubt with your hosts, Mark Geragos and Gary Smith.
Welcome back to the Sunday Altar. And here is our favorite guest pastor, none other than a.k.a. a.k.a. by popular demand. I don't know what is going on. I kind of give tribute to our BFF Brian for actually engaging on a level that people I don't think have seen. And what am I talking about? I'm talking about Baldoni and Lively. And by popular demand, the legions are asking for your take on this.
Thank you, legions. I love that.
Yeah.
I love
everything. I read something this week. I don't know if you saw it. The explosion of Candace Owens and her podcast and her YouTube and all of the Candace Owens world, who Candace Owens, as many, was vilified on the left for a long time.
She was crazy.
Well, it depends on which ox is getting gored, because she does about as good a riff as Vivek on Azerbaijan and Artsakh as anybody I've ever heard.
Right. And that was the first time that I had a personal conflict about the fact that I was on Candace Owens' side and that I was agreeing with everything that was coming out of her mouth. That was the first time when I went, oh, shit. All right.
And so fine. The article, and it's interesting you had that reaction, because this is precisely what I just wanted to chat for a minute about. It is because she was pigeonholed or is pigeonholed into this box. Then all of a sudden the article was the explosion, because she is now engaged doing a deep dive in kind of a very interesting analysis of the Lively-Baldoni litigation. And all I could think about, because this was also, you and I had a similar reaction when she was talking about Artsakh. For those who don't know or are late to the party, Artsakh in 2020 was overrun by the Azerbaijani dictator Aliyev, and they have taken it and occupied it and drove 120,000 people out of Artsakh, and it got very little attention. And the reason that I think both Candace Owens, Vivek, and others talk about it is because Artsakh is a Christian enclave in a sea of Islamic fundamentalists surrounding it. And traditionally, or for the last number of years, last 30 years, also protected by, or at least the enforcer was Big Brother Russia, behind, looking over our shoulder, so to speak. And I say our shoulder, Armenia. And it has been quite a conflict. But she was the early money on pointing out that.
She really was. I actually almost wore an Artsakh t-shirt today instead of this one. I was looking for my Dirty Taco t-shirt. I couldn't find it. And then I was going to grab my Artsakh, but I grabbed Easy instead.
I'm sure to tell Jake that Dirty Taco and Artsakh are very similar. But why don't you bring us up to date on Baldoni and Lively, because there has been quite a bit that is going on.
There has. And I think it's fun for people because there's so many moving parts and there's so many just celebrities that are wrapped up, and there's so many implications for everybody on the peripheral. And then on top of it, you have our BFF, Brian Friedman, he's just so likable himself, and he's getting himself out there. So you've got this combination of these giant A-list names in this drama, plus Brian speaking very well about it. And then Candace is doing a great job because she's so engaging. And if you watch her show, her clips that she throws in there are so hilarious. So it's all great. So the gist of the entire lawsuit is that Blake Lively is arguing that Justin Baldoni is bullying her and was sexually harassing her during the time that they were filming. But it's coming out that Blake Lively really is the bully, and really the power behind how she bullies is really her husband, Ryan Reynolds. And Blake Lively has this cadre of A-list celebrity friends like Taylor Swift. So now the most recent development in the lawsuit is that they have asked, Blake Lively has asked for all of the text messages and phone call logs of Justin Baldoni and his team to try to prove that there was this concerted effort to take down her reputation. But Brian Friedman, because all he does is win, got the subpoenas quashed because they were too wide and far-reaching. They covered way before the time that any of these allegations were even made.
Right. For people who don't know, the standard for those kinds of this is what's called a discovery dispute. And the standard is generally evidence that will reasonably lead to admissible or relevant evidence. And clearly, when you kind of do what we used to call the shotgun approach, that is not something that judges generally look kindly upon.
Yeah, even though everybody would love for him to look kindly upon it, because it would end up just ensnaring everybody that we want Taylor Swift's text messages. We want to see everything that everybody's talking about. And this lawsuit's just getting pettier by the day. I think, who was it? I can't remember which TikToker said it, but they said this is the wokest. Oh, it was Bethenny. Bethenny said, our favorite housewife.
Oh, I would love it. Is Gary hates when I do this, but Gary, if you've got the TikTok of Bethenny, drop it in at any point.
All right, Gary.
You can see it.
Yeah, Bethenny did a little TikTok and said, this is becoming the most woke lawsuit in the history of the world. She said she's wouldn't be surprised if an amended complaint came out saying that, I tried to get my tofu and it touched some meat, and that was one of the complaints. But it's getting so petty, but it's so much fun. And then it is resonating. How often? I have talked about this for decades, that generally a lot of lawyers, especially civil lawyers, have complained for decades that the criminal law kind of is Bigfoot civil when it comes to public attention. And as you know, boy, this is for once a tipping point on that. Yeah, no, people are obsessed like they've never been. People are learning about discovery rules. People are learning about, amended complaints. People are reading the footnotes, because even it's so petty. All of the filings on the Blake Lively side are so petty that even the footnotes are throwing shade. So in the amended complaint, one of the footnotes, or actually in the order for the records, in the footnotes of the request for the records, they said, don't worry, we're not trying to get the content of the text messages. We're not trying to out Justin and his 5 mistresses and 5 psychiatrists. So it's just who reads the footnotes? Lawyers try not to read the footnotes, but now the general public and the TikTok public is publishing footnotes of amended lawsuits. It's a great time to be a lawyer.
And by the way, strategically, one of the sub-themes here, I don't know that, you will hear often, or Alexandra and I, if we're talking, and we sometimes may, and apologies to a lot of my friends who are at big firms, but we might use a typical move of a big firm to do this, and then, or typical big firm move such as this. So much of what is coming out of the Lively camp are what we, a.k.a. and I, have always talked about, just kind of a tone deaf move, not understanding one or two, that their litigation is I used to say it's kind of like a dialectic. You have a thesis, an antithesis, a synthesis. So it's another way of saying it's a pendulum swing. So if you're going to shots fire and expect that you're going to get shots fired back, they never expected on a macro level when they shots fired that they were ever going to get any shots fired back. And that kind of lack of playing checkers while somebody else is playing chess is unfolding daily in this litigation.
Oh, no. And they thought, there she is.
Here we go.
Many of you are aghast that I said SNL was nothing short of brilliant for inviting Blake and Ryan. I stand behind that because they're about eyeballs. For 50 years, they've been producing a show that gets backlash the day after, that has questionable characters on the show and in the audience. They know exactly what they're doing. Put that to the side, talk about Blake and Ryan. You are all saying that it's disrespectful because of what's at hand, which I validate that. That makes sense. I do not think that they are trying to play to the court of public opinion. It won't hurt them in their case. It's years after the film was shot. So the judge isn't going to be like, oh, you went out to something within your industry. And the reason that they're going out within their industry is not because they're trying to get you to like them. That's never going to happen. That's a sunk cost. That is already done. You are not turning. You guys don't like them, period. They know that. They're there because that's the core of their industry. In that room is like being at the Met Gala, the Vanity Fair party. That room is where decisions get made, roles get booked, relevance is sustained. And they want to look at their peers and be like, we're still here. That's just them. That's just the people. Because you guys also dragged Jennifer Lopez to infinity. And what did she do? She looked hot. She got dressed up. She went out. She pushed through. And there are two people that I can think of that you know of that you guys have also gone after hard on here. And I have personally given them the advice, push through, just push through. There's another actor that said to me that they thought that they were getting canceled. And what do? And I said to them, I told them exactly what to do. So I'm just going to tell you that they went into that room because this week, Ari Emanuel, the one who the Entourage Ari was based after, he's one of the top 5 most powerful people in entertainment. And he stood out and said, I'm Team Blake and Ryan. To them, that says, oh, okay, we're still here. And we're not going anywhere. It may not be entirely true, but they are in that room to solidify their status in Hollywood, not to make people on TikTok and Instagram like them.
Okay, so I have
good. By the way, there's just seeing Bethenny, who I adore, remind me, there are people who are talking about Bethenny as the perfect Democratic candidate in 2020.
Oh my God, I'll die.
For president, right?
I'll die.
But what made me think about that this week are two things. Bill Maher, once again, Gary will have to drop this in, did a riff on another potential candidate. And while Gary's finding that, I will tell you that as I sit here in New York and we're taping this, Andrew Cuomo just came out and announced for mayor. And that is wild. What a comeback that is.
Exactly. And that I appreciate Bethany's take on it, that they have to get out there and that they have to just keep going. But it's funny because it's ironic that they're trying to cancel him. They're trying to cancel Justin Baldoni, but now they're fighting for their relevance to come back, and they're fighting for their place in the court of public opinion. But I think they're making the wrong moves. I really, really do. I understand that they should get out there. And Ari Emanuel was just booed when he was on stage. There was a podcast that he was just filming. Oh, it was the Freakonomics, and he came out on. So there's a story that they were filming the podcast and that he came out heavy for Blake and Ryan and that the crowd turned on him. And then when it came time to release the podcast, suddenly there were technical issues and it actually hadn't recorded. And so now, it's the podcast that will never be released. But they went on.
That was talk about a focus group that gave you a forearm shiver to the head.
Right. But they're making all these moves that they're continuing on with their bullying, and they think they're cute and they think they're funny. So, Ryan Reynolds goes on Saturday Night Live and makes this joke about his wife being sexually harassed. And the entire public goes, who does that? Who makes a joke about your wife?
Well, not the entire public. It was Brian. Brian said that.
Oh, yes, it was Brian. See, he's so good. Yeah. And then you have, like, let's go way meta. Hold on one second, Gary. Let's go way meta, because then this week last night on Saturday Night Live, Colin Jost made another joke about it. And don't forget that Colin Jost is married to Ryan Reynolds' ex-wife. So it's like, shut up, just shut up. You're making everything worse for yourself.
So Gary, we'll drop. Here you go.
The Democrats need to find their Trump. Not the authoritarian part, but the part where a politician bonds with everyday Americans because he talks like them. And the good news for Democrats is they have that guy, and his name is John Fetterman.
Hold on for a second. As a focus group right now, and that obviously he records in LA, that did not fly. I mean, that landed somewhat with a thud. And I understand this. They used to say this about George W. Bush, is that the reason that he beat John Kerry is because George W. Bush was the guy you'd like to go have a beer with. I mean, I heard that once. I heard that 100 times. Fetterman, I understand. Bethenny, though, everybody that when I talk about that, everybody who I say that to, they kind of tilt their head and they say, wow, Bethenny. It's kind of a aha moment. But I'm going to tell you, on the other side of the more traditional, Andrew Cuomo, I mean, I think he wins the mayoral race in a romp, my 2 cents. But there is talk about a guy who got caught early on in this whole cancel culture. This really could be a monumental comeback for him.
I agree. And for some reason, like, my sister leans towards like the very conservative, and she'll also go down the rabbit hole of conspiracy theories too. But she lost her mind when she heard about Cuomo coming back yesterday. What? How could he? Oh my God. No. After all of that. And I was like, why are you so mad? Like, why?
Al Franken, because he went like that in the picture.
I mean, that
was an old picture. We're going to cancel him. We're going to throw you out of the Senate. There you go.
Al Franken.
It's just too much. Anyway, what do you prognosticate for this week in the Baldoni Lively saga, or should we just wait? And maybe Gary's going to punch me when I say this. Maybe we'll just drop a midweek.
Gary loves it when you say that so much. I don't think there's any way to know. It's taking so many twists and turns. And I think the Blake and Ryan side is just making all of the wrong choices. So I hope they, come up with some new terrible plan and go full bore, and Brian gets to just eviscerate them on Two Angry Men. And then we just all have a great time watching. I don't know. I'm on the edge of my seat, and I'll keep watching Candace Owens. Now I'm subscribed to Candace Owens TikTok. Thank you so much.
Look at that. You kind of broke down or took off the blinders, or broke down the insidious nature of whatever world.
All of a sudden, Candace and I are just two moms on TikTok now.
I love it. Well, thank you. We appreciate you coming on, as I know you had a rather rough night last night.
I did, but it's all right. I've got a 12 o'clock brunch that'll pick me right back up to my normal blood alcohol level.
Thank you. And Gary, thank you, as always, our fearless GPS. And you notice he didn't pop in and say a word when I said midweek.
Well, I mean, I don't know. It's not like I have anything going on this week, so I think that should be just fine.
Gary's going to come hang out with me in court.
I love it. Good luck in trial.
Thank you.
Okay. And everybody else, we'll see you midweek.
Thanks for listening to Reasonable Doubt. Subscribe on YouTube at youtube.com/Reasonable Doubt Podcast.